Welcome to the first video of the invoicing series by Steltix. My name is Andrea Fernandez from the Communications Department at Steltix, and we're here with Daniel Smith, Managing Director for Asia Pacific Offices. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks, Andrea. Yeah, as Andrea mentioned, my name is Daniel Smith, and we're going to talk to you today about e-invoicing and the implications for your business. But back to you, Andrea.
If you're not familiar with the term e-invoicing, Daniel is going to explain to us in the series the role of e-invoicing for companies, its benefits, requirement, costs, and much more. So let's start from the beginning, Daniel. What is invoicing and why is it important today?
Yeah, I suppose in its purest format, e-invoicing is the digitization of the invoice generation process from an accounts receivable perspective, but also the inbound accounts payable invoice process. What this enables is the seamless integration from both customer to supplier and from supplier to customer. And ultimately, some of the benefits that we're seeing both internationally and in Australia and New Zealand is the reduced cost of invoice generation, both from an AR and the cost of processing from an AP perspective. The government here, in particular in Australia, is released or introduced some incentives to improve the payment terms for organisations that are adopting e-invoicing. So anyone who's interacting with both federal and some state governments will get preferential payment terms, which means improved working capital. And what we're seeing for many organisations tendering for work in the government space is that this requirement is appearing in more and more tenders. So it's advantageous that you have an ERP or a capability that can both produce and consume e-invoices.
Thank you for that, Daniel. I guess we can agree on invoicing being a fundamental pillar on a digital transformation journey of a company. So can you explain to us the types of e-invoicing formats for organizations to have a clearer picture?
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. The first question that typically is posed by organizations trying to understand e-invoicing is how it relates to their current environment. Because typically what we see is organizations for at least the order to cash or accounts receivable process will be generating an electronic PDF and distributing that to their customer. And on the inbound process, they may have some AP automation, or they may have some OCR recognition technology to interpret the inbound PDFs, and they may also still be manually processing your traditional mailed in or other type documents that they receive. So the first question we typically get is, how is e-invoicing different to perhaps sending and receiving PDFs? So e-invoicing is underpinned by a uniform standardized format, which is not a PDF. It's more akin to an XML file format that organizations can send and receive, in addition to a PDF that makes for rapid ingestion and rapid processing, again, both from an AR and AP perspective. So we're no longer reliant on on-premise OCR technology to do that interpretation. We have solutions in place to essentially intercept those PDFs and digitize them into a uniform standard. So we have this term of what we refer to as structured invoice types. So they would be the uniform XML type formats. So there's a universal business language that supports the interchange of invoices both from an AR and AP perspective. And then we refer to invoices in an unstructured sense, so your traditional PDFs, mailed in documents which may require additional hands-on processing and not a touchless end-to-end process.
Thank you for that, Daniel. And the last question for today, what are the ultimate benefits for customers adopting e-invoicing?
Look, I touched on some of them earlier. I think we need to acknowledge that we are anticipating, as is the market, that the government, both here in Australia and New Zealand, will legislate and mandate e-invoicing. They're already doing that within their own government departments. So by July of 2022, the ATO has mandated that Australian federal government agencies will be using e-invoicing exclusively, right? So there is already steps in place to do that. Australia, generally speaking, is well behind the rest of the world in the adoption of e-invoicing, and we're anticipating it being mandated much like legislation such as single touch payroll here in Australia. As it relates to the incentives, well, the government is incentivising organisations, so improved payment terms, e.g. 5 days for organisations that are providing that e-invoicing capability. That's currently in place for both federal government agencies and New South Wales state government here in Australia. I mentioned it's appearing more and more in government tenders, so it is deemed to be favourable that you can exchange financial information or invoice information electronically with government agencies. Then there's the generic or general benefits around a reduction in processing costs. So we're talking about the touchless processing inbound and outbound of invoice information. So there's no manual fingerprinting for OCR technology. There's no requirement to review and manage that particular invoice. It's somewhat seamless as it goes through the value chain. And I suppose the other benefit, which is not purely a financial one, but definitely from a security perspective, as there's less opportunities to manipulate the forms, there's greater fraud detection and greater fraud protection. We know that invoices, particularly outbound, can be manipulated with, which this process definitely minimises and mitigates against. So that's probably a high-level summary of some of the benefits we're dealing with when we're talking to our customers.
Thank you, Daniel. And that will be the end of this first video on the invoicing series by Stelltix. For more information about this topic, you can visit our page, stelltix.com/e-invoicing, and stay tuned for the next video.